everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and my guest this week is somebody who I became familiar with at the inaugural Fight Underground show, Anakin Murphy, one of the other great local talents we have here in the Southern Illinois, St. Louis area. First of all, Anakin, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Uh, so my first question for all of my wrestler guests are: were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Yeah, I was a wrestling fan starting like 6 or 7 years old whenever my dad introduced me into it. Like my first exposure to wrestling that I can remember is SmackDown versus Raw 2008.
Okay.
And
Okay.
ever since then,
Well, now we're going to tangent off of something completely. Did you like the 2008 game? Because that's when I started falling out of the SmackDown versus Raw series.
I loved that game. I think it's more of
Okay.
a nostalgia thing for me. My favorite one's 2007.
Gotcha. Okay, I did like 2007. Just 2008 was I don't know, the I feel like they didn't work the bugs out of the story mode.
2009 is the one that sucked.
Fair enough. See, I never played that one because I always heard that it sucked. So,
Yeah,
um,
I I enjoyed 2008.
right. Okay. I did like how that you had they had the storyline where you thought you were going to team with The Rock, and they kept dropping all these hints about The Rock and this big movie star, and you think it's going to be The Rock, and end up being Roddy Piper instead. That was my
Exactly.
favorite part of that game.
Man,
Um,
I just really like the soundtrack, and every time sometimes on the way to wrestling shows, I just listen to that soundtrack, and it just takes me back.
that's actually funny you mentioned that because there are so many through video games and wrestling. There's so many like bands that I became familiar with and songs that became familiar with
Yeah, definitely.
just through like be it Tony Hawk or Madden or SmackDown versus Raw or or just them being like I became familiar with the bands like Puddle of Mud and Evanescence and Saliva through wrestling. So
Seven Dust is
yes,
like Seven Dust is really really good. I like them a lot.
that's another one. Trapped, you know, became
Oh
familiar
boy,
with Trapped. I mean, just became familiar with that one song that I think like every independent wrestler has used as their theme at some point in time. um, but okay, so SmackDown versus Raw was your first kind of exposure to wrestling. Do you have any early memories of watching the wrestling on TV itself and what wrestlers you liked?
yeah. So ever since I was like 6 or 7 playing that game, it's been like there hasn't a day went by my entire life where I was not thinking or doing or watching something with wrestling, and I'm 19 now, so that's like a good however many years. Um, but my favorite wrestlers growing up was Jeff Hardy and CM Punk,
Okay.
and I got to meet Jeff Hardy, but that's like the more I got older, the more I realized like, man, he was probably high right there.
Well,
Because
I was getting ready to ask you, what was it like being able to meet your favorite wrestler? I know that's always a very important moment to a wrestling fan is getting to finally meet your hero.
so the year was 2011,
Okay.
and Jeff Hardy was on the top of TNA and probably on the top of a lot of drugs. And so it was a TNA show, and I went with my nephew and my nephew's mom to the show. And she didn't tell us, but she got like backstage tickets to have us go meet Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles.
Nice.
AJ Styles is really cool. Whenever we went backstage to meet Jeff Hardy, at the time I was like, holy shit, it's Jeff Hardy. I'm so excited. Like it felt really, really good. But as I got older, I was like, he really didn't care. Like I think because I asked him like I was like 6 or 7. I was like, hey Jeff, uh, what do you think is the hardest match you've ever had? Because I thought wrestling was still real.
Right.
And he looked at me and I looked at the security guard. He's like, that match last night, and then just walked the fuck away.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, man, he that was really the hardest match of his life. And then I got older. I'm like, he was probably high because that was like near victory road.
Oh
So,
wow. Oh wow. Oh my god.
I mean, I love Jeff Hardy. I'm super glad he's clean now, and I'm not like talking bad about him, but like it was just funny. I never got to meet CM Punk though.
See, CM Punk was the second wrestler I ever met. I met him at Buffalo Wild Wings before the SIU Arena house show they had in 2007. So I became a big CM Punk fan uh, at that moment because he's like, oh, I met the guy. So I'm going to jump on the bandwagon now, and then I can kind of be the douchey hipster and claim that I liked him before it was cool and whatnot. Um, now, kind of going back to Jeff Hardy, did he at least sign an autograph or take a picture or shake your hand or something cool, or did he just do that and
Yeah,
walk away from you? Okay, good.
he did take a picture with me. I have it somewhere. Uh, and like if you do like do you keep like this podcast like one image, or do you like flip flop them?
It's live to tape, so I just keep it with one image. But
Okay, well
yeah,
I'm just gonna send you that image, and
yeah,
if
I'll
you
just personally, it'll be kind of cool to see. I always love doing stuff like this, but
okay, well I'll have to send you the image. But
all right,
he did sign something. I think it was like a race car that came with the meet and greet thing.
okay, so okay. Um, so you mentioned those were some of your favorites. At growing up, did you pursue sports or any or amateur wrestling or any sort of athletics while you were growing up?
No, I have zero background in sports. The
Okay.
only like it's funny because whenever people like sometimes ask me that don't know that I'm a professional wrestler, I just tell them that the only sports that I like are fake. So it's I never really had an interest in football. Like I tried it. I tried football, and then like in the first week I was just like, yeah, this is dumb, and I never really had an interest in it or basketball or baseball or anything. It's always
Right.
just been pro wrestling, and that's just been like the only
Right.
thing that's really been on my mind that I've ever really wanted to do.
Right. Um. So mention no athletic background. Did you do anything? Did you do anything to prepare you for what you thought would be a career in pro wrestling? Did you do theater? Did you do any sort of anything like that at all, or was it just all wrestling whenever you started training?
It was just all wrestling. In hindsight, I should have done like karate or jiu-jitsu or even gymnastics. I really should have. And even like now, I'm just like, I'm still young. I can do that. So I'm like, I may get into it now, but like whenever I started training, it was just nothing. I was just wrestling.
Uh, so that leads directly into our next question. When did you decide? I mean, you mentioned that you've always been thinking about wrestling ever since that day. When did you decide that this is truly the career you want to pursue, and subsequently from there, how did you find your school? How did you take the steps to make the dream a reality?
Okay, so this is kind of like a long tangent I'm gonna go
Oh
on
no, we,
real
we got
quick.
we got plenty of time.
All right, cool. So like ever since like 8, 9, 10, whatever, I started to want to be a wrestler. And like I'm a small dude, and even whenever I was younger, I was even smaller. And I was always told by family, friends, teachers, whatever, that I wouldn't be able to do it. And for some reason, it just went to the back of my head. So like there was other times where I wanted to become like an author or a film director or something like that. But just like yeah, like they interested me and I liked them, but nothing interested me more than wrestling did.
Right.
And I was 13, and I went to a local independent wrestling show. It was PWA Thanksgiving Terror in Jacksonville, Illinois,
Okay.
with my dad and my nephew. And it was that night where I was like, okay, because I did not know local indie wrestling existed. But it was that night where I was just like, if these guys can do it, I can do it. And still had people telling me like, hey, you're not going to do that. you're way too skinny. They're gonna eat you alive. You're gonna break a bone once you bump, whatever. But like, it always just stuck with me that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And
Right.
now that I've done it, those same people that doubted me are just like, "Oh, dude, you're so cool." And it's just like, yeah,
Very very cathartic experience to kind of come back on someone like that, I can imagine.
yeah. How I found my first wrestling school. So PWA had a school called Pinfall Academy whenever I was 13, but they had like an age requirement, so I had to wait a couple years.
Right.
The moment I turned 16 and was going to go train there, they shut down.
Okay.
So I felt hopeless. So and also during this time, I backyard wrestled a lot, and like
We've all been there. We've all been there.
my entire backyard wrestling history is on YouTube.
Mine too. Mine too. And I will not tell you if you can find it. Congratulations, but I'm not going to put it out there for you. So,
I I had a lot of fun with backyard wrestling. I don't
oh
think
yeah,
that
it's now it's very interesting. Interesting you mentioned that. Whenever you were backyard wrestling, were you like doing it with the intent of, hey, I want to get better and eventually become an actual professional wrestler, or were you guys just? I mean, backyard wrestling in general is just a bunch of friends screwing around in the backyard. But were you actually trying to get better and practice moves, or were you just like, hey, let's have some fun and
I,
jump
it
and what?
it
How
was
was your
all
backyard wrestling?
it was all really just fun. There was always a point where I'm just like, okay, eventually I'm gonna stop this so I can go train, which is what I was gonna say. Like, I think backyard wrestlers should go get training to be pro wrestlers if they have that commitment, because a lot of wrestlers don't have the commitment. But I always liked backyard wrestling. I always liked doing it. Like the most fun I had in high school was whenever I was doing backyard wrestling with my friends.
Okay,
And out of all my backyard friends, there was only two that managed to become pro wrestlers, and that's me and my friend Jacques Kennedy,
okay,
who's also a wrestler, but he's out with a torn ACL right now.
okay.
He was scheduled to face John Wayne Murdoch at the Fight Underground show.
Really? Because I'm I don't dislike deathmatch wrestling, but deathmatch wrestling is not my favorite. But I did really like John Wayne Murdoch's match at that show. So, oh wow,
Yeah,
that sucks.
yeah.
Oh,
So like
still on the
he's
subject of
really
backyard wrestling, I got to ask you: did you have a trampoline, or did you guys build a ring of some kind?
it started out as a trampoline, and the trampoline broke, so we just wrestled on the grass. And
Gotcha.
then we're just like, all right, let's make a makeshift ring. So we made a makeshift ring.
We in my younger days, we built a makeshift ring with we built like a frame and found old telephone poles that we made into the posts and the found lined a steel rod and a garden hose for our for our ropes, and then the ring itself was mattresses and tires
Uh,
with a
I
tarp.
My dad is super super good at building stuff. So he put like wooden posts and concrete, and put like a wooden frame over it, and got like tires. Got like some I forgot what kind of wood it was, but it was wood, and then it was exercise mats, and then it was an actual wrestling canvas, and then ropes with garden hose over it.
Nice.
So like
That seems to be the standard ring at this point, and for backyard wrestling.
yeah. Um, but with the training thing, so I felt hopeless. So I was just backyard wrestling until something came up, and I saw an ad on Facebook about a school in Southern Illinois, and that's where I started my training at.
Uh, which school was it?
It was Cowboy Bob Orton's Ace Wrestling Academy
Oh
in
wow.
East Carondelet, Illinois. It ran out of Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling
Oh
(SICW).
yes, I've been to quite a few though. Well, at least a few of those shows.
Yeah,
Herb Simmons, great promoter.
Herb Simmons. Yeah,
Yes.
I did not have a good experience with this training academy. They taught me the basics, and I know the basics from what they taught me, but that's pretty much it. Um, the Cowboy Bob Orton was legitimately the nicest dude that I've ever had like help me out. That isn't like my biggest mentor, which I'll get to in a second. But he was super supportive, super helpful. Even whenever I rolled my ankle in training and sat out, he like grabbed a chair and sat next to me and just talked shit the entire night. And he was super cool. Um, and I missed that academy a lot because of him. But eventually I left that to go to another wrestling school, which I'm not really going to name because the person in front of me got outed. I spent a little bit of time there, got more experience, and then went to Pinfall Academy whenever they reopened back up,
Okay.
and that's where I'm at.
Okay.
So the biggest mentor I had, and the dude that I really consider my trainer, because for some reason, whenever I was training at Bob Orton's, he was there. Whenever I was training at the other place, he was there. And even now, he's still there, was Roy Lewis, if you know who
Okay.
that is.
No, I'm not familiar with him.
Roy Lewis has been wrestling for 6 or 8 years. He's a technical genius, and ever since day one of training, he has been my biggest supporter and the one person that's helped me the most. And he's helped so many others, and he does not get the credit he deserves, but he definitely deserves it because Roy is a super good wrestler. And not only has he taught me like wrestling lessons and like business lessons, but like he's also taught me a lot about life. And I'm very much appreciative of him. I even talked to him on the phone for like an hour yesterday.
Okay. What are, I mean, you don't have to get too deep into anything you don't want to get into, but like, what are some of the lessons that he taught you that really stuck with you?
Uh, since I'm a small dude, he taught me a lot about working out, a lot about perfecting certain things, a lot about like surviving like on the road because he's the kind of guy that like went down to Texas with ACH and Kurt Stallion and had to take a shower in a McDonald's bathroom and stuff like that. So like real survivalist kind of stuff with wrestling, he's always helped me out. Like
Okay.
anytime Roy talks to me, Roy's helping me out way more than he realizes.
Awesome. So you go to several of these different schools, um, pick up mentors along the way. When do you finally have your first professional wrestling match?
I had my first match in June 22nd, 2019 against Roy Lewis. Uh, it was the worst match I've ever had because it was just, we called everything and then I forgot everything. So it was just, it was a bad match. It was the worst match I've had. And hopefully, or thankfully, we made that up a couple months ago with a rematch. But ever since then, I've been wrestling. So like that's a year and a half at this point.
Awesome. Um, so you had that was your first match. What all promotions did you kind of travel to as you were in your first year of wrestling, really trying to get your feet underneath you as far as being a wrestler? Which promotions gave you the opportunities?
So I'm out of Central Illinois.
Central Illinois. Okay.
So so every show that isn't PWA in Springfield, I have to travel 2 or more hours to. So
Right.
I think that helped me a lot. 01 USA was the first promotion to really take a chance on me. They're out of Mattoon, which is
Okay.
like near Chicago. I don't know if it's really near Chicago. It's 3 hours north from Springfield. If,
Okay.
but they really took a chance on me. They gave me my first actual singles match that I really liked. They gave me a hardcore toys match with one of my best friends. And 01 is, I consider 01 my home promotion
Okay.
because of how they treated me and because of the opportunities they gave me. And Yeah.
Well, let's talk about 01 a little bit. I'd always heard of that promotion. I haven't, I'm sorry to say I haven't really been able to see much of it, uh, but I've heard a lot about it. I'm from the Southern Illinois region. Uh, what is 01 USA, and like who are some of the stars that me being in the Southern Illinois St. Louis area that maybe I'd have heard of that are in 01 USA?
Gary J works there a lot. If you know Blake Steele or Oliver Kane, they're mainstays there. Joey O'Reilly has
Yes.
improved absolute like tremendously over this year, and he's a top guy there. That's also a dude that helped me a lot. Um, Jordan Perry is one of the main guys there. Um, Rain Victoria, she is right now their women's champion.
Okay.
That's just like a general basis of who's there most consistently.
Okay. So 01 USA is your home promotion out of Mattoon. Um, what what brought you down south to fight underground? When I saw you for the first time.
Okay, so I'll tell the story too.
Sure.
So
Go.
I also have worked with IWAU out of Noble, Illinois,
Okay.
and in March I had a match with Cash Borden, uh, and it was a good match, and Cash liked me a lot, and he referred me to the Fight Underground, and they messaged me, and the amount of love and support that I've gotten from Fight Underground has literally boosted my confidence as a wrestler and a person. Uh, if I did have a second home, it'd be Fight Underground.
Awesome.
Uh,
Um,
but
okay. You mentioned how much Fight Underground boosted your confidence. Uh, what did you think about the concept of Fight Underground? Because while I as a fan, knew Dalton and Zach for a while now, but you know, we always kind of talked wrestling, talked about quote unquote obscure independent wrestling and stuff like that. I know a lot of people in the area thought that Fight Underground was not maybe the best of ideas to have in this area deathmatch wrestling. Now, that's just their opinion. But what was your thoughts on the whole Fight Underground experience? I should say, just like being the concept, how it was executed, the venue. What do you think of Fight Underground?
the Fight Underground show that I went to was legitimately one of the best shows I've ever went to. It has such a good locker room feel. Felt safe in the locker room, even though New Jack was there. Um, which I I'll tell the story real quick.
No,
So
please. Let's talk about New Jack.
before the show, I was in my carload with the people I was riding to the show with, which are two of my best friends and my girlfriend, and we were all talking about New Jack. And originally, the goal that me and my friend had was to make New Jack laugh. And eventually, the moment New Jack came out with his camo overalls, we're just like, yeah, this guy's not fucking around. We're not even gonna talk to him. So the entire night we just avoided New Jack. And I was sitting in the locker room, and he was like right across from me. And he had I think he had like surgery on his foot or something.
Right.
And I asked him like, hey, New Jack, what happened to your foot? Because he had a boot on. And this man looked at me for 45 seconds, just stared at me, and he just told me like what happened. And then I was like, oh, okay. So I looked away, and apparently New Jack was just staring at me for like 2 minutes, and then just got up and left. So in that 2 minutes, as I'm looking down at my phone, I'm fearing for my life because I feel his eyes, and yeah,
Oh dear. Yeah, that's kind of that's what everybody was afraid of. I had because I did the meet and greet with New Jack, and I remember texting some friends going, I've never been more nervous before a wrestling meet and greet in my life.
He had a presence to him, but
Oh
he
yeah. I mean,
overall
he
he
was
was a
took a
cool
good
dude.
picture, signed my autograph, shook my hand. I said thank you. He said you're welcome. Everything was, you know, there was nothing out of the ordinary other than it was a standard meet and greet. Other than I'm just like here going, well, it's new, Jack.
He was a cool dude though. He was a cool dude. Don't really take any of the stories I'm saying as like shit talking because I really enjoyed New Jack in that locker room. So, um, but with Fight Underground, um, it was a really good atmosphere, and I felt like I belonged there. And with a lot of promotions that I worked for, with the exception of a few, I don't really feel like I belong in the locker room. A Fight Underground feels like I belong.
Okay.
Um, well, you said that a lot of people didn't think it was a good idea because it had death matches.
Yeah, 'cause it's a
And
very conservative area, and I mean, while I've had Heath Hatton from Stride on the show, and he is absolutely 100% supportive to the hilt of any kind of wrestling in Southern Illinois, being around, be it his family friendly promotion with Stride, with Fight Underground being death matches. Heath is he's a great guy in terms of how much he supports wrestling in the area because of how good it is not only for this area but for pro wrestling, independent pro wrestling. But there were just you kind of hear stories from people going, why is there, especially in a conservative area such as this, why is this going on? Why are we having this in Southern Illinois? It's not going to work here. It's too violent. It's too this. It's too that. And it's just kind of, I guess you'd say, par for the course for wrestling, but they
yeah,
do have a point because we are a very conservative area, and obviously when you think wrestling in Southern Illinois, you think of something a little more like Stride because it's kind of more fun for the whole family, and you can bring your kids, and you know,
wrestling is really subjective, but I feel like wrestling fans should have an appreciation for everything. Um, Same with wrestlers too. Now, I'm not talking about Heath Hatton because I don't really know Heath Hatton. He just booked me on one show and then I got COVID. Uh, but I feel like if people want that family friendly environment, they should go to Stride. They should go to SICW. They should go to the promotions they like. But if they still have an appreciation for deathmatch wrestlers and deathmatch wrestling.
and that's
Me,
Heath in a nutshell right there. He
uh,
does have that appreciation.
yeah, for sure. But there's a lot of wrestlers that despise deathmatch wrestling just because it's hardcore wrestling and they only like the old school feely kind of wrestling. And it irks me because I really feel like everyone should just love wrestling. Like me, I can have fun watching old school wrestling, deathmatch wrestling, comedy wrestling, super spot wrestling, two dudes beating the shit out of each other, a pure wrestling match. Like I can have fun watching any wrestling match, and I wish there was a lot more people like that because I think I just don't like wrestling getting shit on. I don't like
Right.
wrestling like talking bad about like, oh, this guy did two Canadian destroyers in a match. That's a bad match. Like, okay, Carl, I get it. I just that was just a little
No,
thing
that's
that I wanted
that's
to put in
great
there.
because I agree. I mean, I criticize wrestling. That's part of what I do on a channel. I shouldn't say criticize, but we talk wrestling, and sometimes we're critical of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not because I hate wrestling or want wrestling to be go away. It's because I love wrestling, and I want to go. This is why I like this, and this is why I dislike this. But if someone,
Right.
you know, I'm with you. While deathmatch wrestling's not my cup of tea, I saw good death matches that night. Um,
Yeah.
I saw great technical wrestling that night. I saw great storytelling done that night. It was a very well-rounded show, if you can believe that. And I say that if you can believe that because so many people thought it was just going to be like quote unquote trashy death matches, and it totally was not.
Fight Underground is a hardcore show. It is very deathmatchy, but there is going to be times where, like, that's not going to happen and you're going to see actual wrestling. Like, I think that show, there was like two death matches.
Right.
I know my
Three.
match
Well,
didn't.
three. There was main event, John Wayne Murdoch's match, and then Pondo and Bull.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. So three over how many matches were on that card?
I forget.
Three out of an 8-9 match card were death matches. So
Yeah,
I mean, no real point in stereotyping anything.
right. Like, Fight Underground is gonna be hot. It's gonna be such a good promotion, and I'm super glad that people are into it, and I'm super glad that I'm a part of it.
What are your goals? If the world can get back to normal, what are your goals for 2021 and subsequently beyond? What are your short-term goals and your long-term goals for your career?
Uh, Lately, I've been really struggling with wrestling and really struggling with my image. So I hope in 2021 I get to where I feel like mentally I need to be in wrestling with my size and how I'm doing and how I'm like perceived. Um, I feel like that's one of the biggest short term goals to get to where I feel like I need to be. But like little fun short term goals, um, I want to work for promotions like probably Stride because I missed that opportunity this year and I was really bummed about it. I want to work with one of the top promotions in the Midwest, so like Glory Pro or Black Label Pro or Southern Underground Pro or anything like that.
Oh, awesome! I'm never been to Black Label Pro, but I've been to several Glory Pro shows. I'd love to see you there.
Um, I would like to wrestle a intergender match. So I feel like that'd be very fun.
Awesome.
I want to do at least one death match in 2021. Um, I think in terms of short-term goals, and to be in the 01 USA Tenkachi Junior tournament.
Awesome.
Those are the short-term goals I have. Long-term goals, I think the biggest long-term goal that I have is to get signed to a contract, and I never used to be like that, but that's honestly where I want to be. I don't care if it's like Impact or Ring of Honor or AEW or NXT or whatever. The long-term goal is to get signed and is to pretty much wrestle every day as a full-time job.
Awesome. What is the have you gotten any advice to achieve those goals? And if you don't mind sharing, what was the advice?
Um, no, I haven't. I don't think I've really gotten any advice to those goals, but I've gotten like little remarks and advice to push me towards those goals. Like two of the biggest mentors that I have right now is, of course, Roy and Blake Steele. They both have helped me a lot. My best friends within wrestling is like Jacques Kennedy, who helps me a lot, and Connolly, who is a wrestler that it just got booked for Paradigm Pro in Indiana. He helps me a lot. Johnny Kincaid out of Central Illinois, like those kind of people. Also like Robert Leach. Those
Uh,
people push me to be better, and those people help me like look at like, hey, in your match, this happened and this could have happened and stuff like that. So I think those are the main people who are helping me get towards those goals.
um, it's funny you mentioned Robert Leach because through Fight Underground was my first exposure to Robert Leach as a character. What can you tell me about Robert Leach? Because I was really intrigued by he does like a really good promo style, and kind of now through AEW you're kind of seeing the resurgence of people using managers in mainstream pro wrestling. So that would definitely gives for people like Robert Leach, the
Yeah.
more of a, I guess, opportunity to go further than where he was previously. What can you tell me about this guy Robert Leach, who just I'm very intrigued to see more of. Hopefully through Fight Underground and beyond, uh, if the world can get back to normal.
Robert Leach has been a part of wrestling for 5 years, and I'm super glad that he now is getting noticed and now is getting like some traction and bookings, because like for his first excuse me, like 3 years, he got endless shit. Like he got like he was put through a lot his first 3 years, and um, it's not really my business to say why or what happened,
Right.
but it made him better, and he pushed through it and showed that he can be somebody. Like I've seen Robert literally commentate, ring announce, and manage all in one show. I've
Wow.
seen him do multiple shows in the same day. He has a love for wrestling, and he is so good at everything he does. Um, he did commentary for that Fight Underground show. It's on IWTV. He's a super good manager. Like he manages Frank in Fight Underground. He manages me in IWAU, and he managed Dan Liplock, who is now Connolly, for like over a year. He's super, super good at that. He's a super good heel. He's very, very good at getting the crowd going. He has such a great voice for ring announcing, and I think he needs to be exposed more for that. Uh, and just he's all around. Rob is a very good dude and even harder worker.
Awesome. I'm hoping. Never got the pleasure of getting to meet him, but I'd love to meet him, and I'd love to have him get a manager's perspective on the podcast one of these days. So, Rob, if you listen, hit your boy up.
I can definitely tell him to hit you up, or you can hit him up.
Okay.
He'll
Awesome.
definitely do something like this.
Awesome. Yeah, because I saw his promo about no futures, and this is dead. And I'm like, this guy's good, and I was just so intrigued by him. And yeah, it's very. If it wasn't for COVID, we'd have a very a golden age of independent wrestling, in this area. If it wasn't for that damn virus, so, um, but even through the virus, I was still exposed to new talent like him and you, and definitely excited to get to see you in person again. I'm definitely excited to see where your career goes, and yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here, and I wish you nothing but the best, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, dude. It was
Uh,
fun.
you have any social media you'd like to put out there? Because I mean, I have listeners. While I have a lot of listeners in the Southern Illinois and St. Louis area, I know I have quite a few from Northern Illinois and quite a and all different parts of the United States. They'd like to. Where can they find Anakin Murphy?
My Facebook is Anakin Murphy, just probably how it's spelled. Like Anakin Murphy is spelled how you see it.
Okay,
Uh, my Instagram is Anakin Murphy Official. My Twitter is Anakin Sad Murphy, and my YouTube is Anakin Murphy Official. So like, please follow me. I want
awesome.
to get.
And I'll put links to all of that in the description box below. I wanted to. I usually end my wrestler interviews with word association, but we've pretty much the people I wanted to talk about. You already went into word association with them throughout the interview, but it's all good. But again, thank you so much for doing this, and I hope I hope I can. The next Fight Underground show has fans, and I hope I can see you again.
Hell yeah, dude. Thank you.
And thanks for everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this, please give a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from the world of comics, anime, gaming, and all things geek culture. Follow me on my social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeek89, Twitter at athletic_geek89, and Instagram at athleticgeek89. And if you'd like to help the channel out financially, I am on Patreon, patreon.com/athleticgeek89. And definitely go follow Anakin Murphy. Got a lot of talent. Let's help him get these goals because he definitely deserves them. Thanks again to Anakin Murphy. We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.